Now, in our first section of the course, we looked at the theory of the group by clause. Now, in this section, we are going to get over to our pgadmin to begin to practice what we've learned so far. Now, if you come to our pgadmin, we are going to be using the payments table from our DVD rentals database. But first of all, let us select the whole column from our table. That is a payment table. Now, if you execute this query, we have this table here. We have the payment column, payment ID, customer ID, staff ID, rental ID, amount, and then the payment date. But we said earlier that we need to carry out that our group by goes with categorical data, all right, which is non-continuous. Now, first of all, you need to identify the categorical column we have in this table. I'm basically looking at this. One of the secret I'll be telling you is this: if you want to actually know a categorical data or a column from your data or from your table, you can first of all check this column. If they have repeated values, for example, here we have 1, 1. And then under the staff ID, we have 1, 1, we have 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. Now, simply, if I'm to explain this to someone, I'll be like, if I happen to go to an office and then I will be like, if you know you're a staff whose staff ID is 2, come over this side. Notice that we have about, basically looking at this, we have this staff that owns 2 here. We have 2 here, we have 2, we have 2. So every staff that have the staff ID of 2 will be grouped in one location. And also we can use the distinct keyword here on that column, staff ID. Now, if we execute this query, you notice that we have unique staff ID here. Okay. Now, if we go back to our previous query and run this, we can also apply that to our customer ID. We have 341. It therefore means that our customers in this table here has their unique ID 345, 44, 46, 47. So if you apply the same distinct keyword here, you are going to get the distinct or the unique values of your customer ID. So I can decide to choose the customer ID or the staff ID to be my categorical column. But for now, we'll be applying a single column to our group by. So we are using the customer ID. All right. And note that we also need to apply an aggregate function. All right. So, and the aggregate function, we are going to apply it on the amount column. Let's say we want to get the sum of the amounts, all right, from the payment table. And we said that the group by statement can come after the from clause or the from statement to say. All right, so let's group this by, and we always group this by the customer ID. That is our categorical column. Now, if we happen to group this by the ID and you execute this query, this is basically what you are going to get. So our customers have been grouped into their different IDs, showing their different sum of the amount here. Now, you can always order this by, the customer ID. All right, so if you execute this query, we are ordering this by the ascending order. You can choose to apply the descending keyword to order it in the descending order. All right, so this is one of the ways of applying the group by statement. Now, we also said that you can apply the where statement here. Let's say if you have a condition, maybe where, or we are going to be looking at this later on, all right? But for now, let's apply the group by to multiple columns. Now, I'm basically looking at our table. If we happen to go back to our query history and then let us copy this to our query editor and we execute the query. You notice that in our customer ID, we also have the staff ID to be our categorical column. So for us to do this, we can possibly use two columns to be our categorical column. So which is our customer ID and our staff ID. Then you can include the average. Can include the average of the amount. All right, we want to get the average of the amount of maybe each of the customers whose ID has been categorized. Now, if you happen to group this, let's group by customer. All right, let's group this by customer ID and then staff ID. Staff ID. All right, always try to end your query with a semicolon. Now, if you run this query, this is what you'll be getting. And we said initially that the average will always return floating point numbers on decimal numbers. But we can always count these, all right? We can always count these. We can always round this up to our, maybe round this, round, R-O-U-N-D. Can always round this up to maybe 5 or 3 decimal places. So this is basically what you are getting. And then when you are trying to order, if you are trying to order the amount, let's say order by, you are not just ordering the amount, you need to order everything you placed here, all right? You need to copy this down and place it here. Okay, we are supposed to remove this and then end our statement here and run the query. Okay, so we are ordering the amount. Okay, we are rounding off the average of the amount after we must have grouped our categorical data to this. Okay, so you can decide to begin to play around with these queries. Now, you can always limit your values. Let's take, for example, you want to only limit the values to, you want to get only the 10, all right, only to 10, then run this query. Okay, this is basically what you are getting. So this is it on how to use a group by statement. And in our subsequent lectures, you are going to see about applying the having clause or the having statement to the group by clause.